Terry Rozier celebrates a big Celtics run late in the first half of Game 2 against the 76ers in Boston. Maddie Meyer, Getty Images, follow along with live coverage of tonight's Game 2s. This post will update frequently. Catch up on Wednesday's games here. The Celtics are the NBA's version of The Walking Dead. With 3 players, Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward and Daniel Theis, out for the series, and another, Jaylen Brown, in and out of the lineup with a hamstring injury, Boston reversed a 22-point deficit in the first half to emerge with a 108-103 victory over the 76ers to take a 2-0 lead in this Eastern Conference semifinal. Entering this series, Philadelphia, with a healthy roster featuring Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, was considered a heavy favorite to advance. Instead, Boston won the first 2 games behind a flood of three-pointers, 17 in Game 1, 15 in Game 2, taking care of the ball, 10 turnovers in Game 1, 9 in Game 2, and Ben Simmons' complete disappearance in Game 2. Simmons will be the dominant storyline coming out of this one. The presumptive Rookie of the Year missed all 4 shots he took in 31 minutes, finishing with 1.5 rebounds, 7 assists and 5 turnovers. More importantly, he was -23. His backup, T.J. McConnell, scored 8 points on a perfect 4 for 4 shooting to go with 3 assists, 2 steals and no turnovers in 17 minutes. McConnell was +16. Ben Simmons, 31 minutes, 0 for 4, 1 point, 7 assists, 4 turnovers, -23. T.J. McConnell, 17 minutes, 4 for 4, 8 points, 5 assists, 0 turnovers, 16. Brett Brown went back to Simmons with 5:29 left and his team leading, 93-91. Adam Himmelsbach, at Adam Himmelsbach, May 4, 2018. That story will get plenty of oxygen between now and Saturday afternoon, when the Sixers host the Celtics in Game 3. But it shouldn't overshadow yet another impressive comeback by a Boston team that just isn't quit. "That's the story of our season," rookie Jason Tatum said on TNT after leading the Celtics with 21 points. "We've been down, guys, but we've had that mentality all season long." Marcus Smart, not exactly known as a scorer, had 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals and hit 4 threes. Terry Rozier had 20 points, 9 assists and no turnovers as he continues to flourish as Irving's understudy. Brown added 13 points and 4 rebounds in 25 minutes, though he appeared to re-injure his hamstring in the second half and had to come out again. It was another team effort from a Celtics team that has been thriving off them over the past few weeks as they've survived one setback after another. Now Boston finds itself 2 wins away from a trip back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Sixers coach Brett Brown is going to have a decision to make. So far in this game, T.J. McConnell has thoroughly outplayed Ben Simmons. In 14 minutes, McConnell is 4 for 4 for 8 points with 3 assists, 2 steals and no turnovers. Simmons, meanwhile, is 0 for 2 with 1 point, 4 rebounds, 5 assists and 4 turnovers. McConnell is +12. Simmons is -16. Simmons has been out since midway through the third quarter. Will Brown go back to Simmons? The Celtics have completely flipped this game on its head. Since the 6:41 mark of the second quarter, when a Robert Covington three-pointer pushed the Sixers out to their biggest lead of the game at 48-26, Boston has outscored Philadelphia 53-31. As a result, the Celtics entered the fourth quarter leading 79-75, and with a chance to take a 2-0 lead in this best-of-7 series. So how has this happened? Pretty simple. Marcus Smart has 18 points on 6 for 9 shooting, including 4 for 7 from 3. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, has been invisible, 1 point on 2 shots, with 4 rebounds, 5 assists and 4 turnovers. Rather than the triple-double machine he's been so far in these playoffs, Simmons has done nothing to make an impact on this game. Philadelphia will undoubtedly wonder if that's going to change in the fourth. For most of the first half, the Sixers were the dominant team. Then came the final 4 minutes of the second quarter. And, seemingly in the blink of an eye, the Celtics got themselves back in the game. Over the final 3:30 of the half, Boston outscored Philadelphia 18-3, going 7 for 10 from the field while the Sixers went 1 for 7 with a turnover. The result was Boston cutting what was a double-digit deficit for most of the first half to 5, and taking a 56-51 lead into halftime. Perhaps the most confusing thing about the first half was how quiet Ben Simmons was. Philadelphia star rookie barely made an impact on the game, scoring 1 point, missing 1 shot, grabbing 3 rebounds, dishing out 3 assists and committing 3 turnovers. It was a remarkably passive performance, and one Philadelphia needs to change after halftime. Robert Covington, meanwhile, has bounced back from a poor Game 1 to score 12 points on 4 for 6 shooting in the first half of this game. J.J. Redick had 15 points, including 13 in the first quarter, to lead Philadelphia, while Joel Embiid had 10 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal and 1 block. Marcus Smart was the surprising leading scorer for Boston, leading the Celtics with 13 points on 4 for 5 shooting, including 3 for 4 from 3, while also being fouled on a fourth by Embiid. J.J. Redick went 2 for 7 from three-point range in Game 1. Through about 15 minutes of Game 2, he's already 3 for 3. Redick's hot start, 13 points on 5 for 6 shooting overall, including those 3 triples, has Philadelphia off to a big lead in the second quarter in Boston. The Celtics got a boost from Jaylen Brown's return, but the beginning of this game has looked a lot more like what many expected this series to be, as opposed to the offensive explosion Boston produced in Game 1. If the Celtics have proven anything in these playoffs, though, it's that they shouldn't be counted out. This wasn't an ideal start, though. Jaylen Brown spent much of Game 7 against the Bucks and all of Game 1 against the 76ers watching from the sideline with a hamstring injury. But after staying on the bench to start Game 2, Brown has made his debut in this Eastern Conference semifinal series. Brown immediately launched a 3, missed, and then raced ahead of the pack to grab a loose ball and dunk it, forcing a Philadelphia timeout. Something to watch, though. Brown looked like he was grimacing after the dunk. Hamstring injuries are tricky, and he could injure something again. The Celtics have to be careful to make sure he doesn't re-aggravate something, and miss even more time. For the past year, the Raptors spent every waking moment trying to erase the memories of a demoralizing sweep at the hands of the Cavaliers in the 2017 Eastern Conference semifinals. The Raptors changed their style of offense, adding more passing and three-point shooting. They emphasized their bench, allowing Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan to take less of a load on their shoulders. They added a physical presence on the wing in OG Anunoby to throw at LeBron James, and they added CJ Miles to give them more shooting off the bench. For the past few months, it looked like things could be different. The Raptors won 59 games. They earned the top seed in the Eastern Conference. The Cavaliers, meanwhile, limped into the playoffs, then went 7 games with the Indiana Pacers in a grueling first-round series. But then the Cavaliers, after never leading in regulation, managed to win Game 1 of this year's rematch. After all the postseason failures of Toronto's past, there was some thought that game had ripped the heart out of the Raptors after all of the changes they'd made. With his performance in Game 2, James removed all doubt. James was transcendent Thursday night, scoring 43 points to go with 8 rebounds and 14 assists, leading the Cavaliers to a 128-110 Game 2 victory in Toronto, sending the series back to Cleveland with the Cavaliers holding a commanding 2-0 lead and halfway to a second straight sweep and a third straight series victory against the Raptors. And, with his scintillating second half, in which James went 13 for 19 to score 27 points, he destroyed the Raptors, taking the fight out of the players and the crowd, and letting anyone watching know how this series is going to play out. "We've got a long way to go," James said in his television interview after the game. "We just want to continue to try to improve each and every game, and that's what we've done through 9 games, we've improved. We've got to keep our guards up, and continue to push." It's hard to see how James can improve from here. Time after time in the second half, he buried ridiculous fadeaway jumpers, each one soaring higher in the air than the last before softly rippling through the net, all served as a dagger through the heart of his opponent, as if James was toying with the Raptors like a cat with a mouse. And he wasn't alone. The Cavaliers went 8 for 14 from 3 in the second half. Individually, Kevin Love finally emerged in these playoffs, scoring 31 after never topping 19 through his first 8 games. He also grabbed 11 rebounds, finally re-emerging as the second all-star he's supposed to be. Kevin Love was phenomenal, James said. "He was the all-star we know and have grown to love. This was a complete team effort, this was a big win for us. I said it before the game, we are going to continue to go to him. It was big time for Kev to see the ball go through the rim, and once he does he's going to keep going." But for as much as this game was about James and about Love, it was also about the Raptors and their complete capitulation. A top 5 team in both offense and defense this season, Toronto offered absolutely no resistance. After the Cavaliers were in cruise control in the first half, trailing by just 2 at halftime, they scored 8 straight points to take the lead for good to start the third quarter, and never looked back. Now this series shifts back to Cleveland, where it will be up to Toronto to prove it has some kind of life left. The Raptors spent a year working to get back to this matchup against a Cavaliers team that has embarrassed them 2 years in a row. Through 2 games, it looks like those 12 months were an utter waste of time. The lack of fight from the Raptors as this game, and their season, slips away is astounding. Sure, it can be demoralizing to see LeBron James make one insane shot after another on your home court. But how can Toronto, in front of its fans, with its season on the line, show no fight and no life? It's hard to believe it's happening, even as I'm watching it. Trailing by 13 points with 7 minutes to go, this game isn't over yet. But if you look at the body language of the Raptors, you'd think it ended at halftime. It's a stunning capitulation on a huge stage after months of hearing how things were going to be different this time around in Toronto. Raptors have been able to carry over their changes in style from the regular season, but their past postseason struggles against LeBron James and the Cavaliers have continued. Now their season is on the brink, and it's unclear if they're going to fight to save it. The Raptors have less than 12 minutes to save their season. No, their series with the Cavaliers won't end if the Raptors lose Game 2. But trying to come back from a 2-0 deficit against LeBron James is too much to expect Toronto to overcome. Something is going to have to change quickly for that not to happen, after Cleveland outscored Toronto 37-24 in the third quarter, including going 5 for 8 from three-point range after going just 3 for 12 in the entire first half. "We let our foot off the gas defensively," Raptors coach Dwayne Casey said in his ESPN interview between quarters. Serge Ibaka was so bad early in the game that he went to the bench within 2 minutes of the third quarter starting, and looks like he'll be staying there. Meanwhile, LeBron James now has 35 points, 13 assists and 8 rebounds as the Cavaliers opened up a 18-point lead early in the fourth quarter. 8 straight points to start the third quarter for the Cavaliers. 4 fouls for Kyle Lowry. It's safe to say the start of the second half did not go the way the Raptors would have liked. A timeout less than 2 minutes into the second half by Toronto coach Dwayne Casey is what the Raptors hope will stop the bleeding, but this is the doomsday scenario for the home team, down 0-1 in the series, giving Cleveland no resistance at all defensively and looking tight. That needs to change soon, or else. The Raptors had a great first half. They shot 25 for 42, 58.5% from the field and 7 for 14, 50% from three-point range. They had 14 assists on 25 baskets. He got 29 points on combined 11 for 16 shooting from Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. And, with all of those positive markers in their favor, the Raptors only led the Cavaliers by 2 at halftime. That's a big problem for Toronto. Already down 1-0 in the series after falling apart late in Game 1, Toronto simply can't afford to head to Cleveland for Game 3 Saturday trailing 2-0 in this best-of-7 affair. Yet, at this point, it feels like that is the most likely outcome. Kevin Love finally broke out in the first half for Cleveland, scoring 18 points, more than in all but one game in these playoffs so far, while LeBron James had 16 points and 7 assists. But Cleveland is just 3 for 12 from three-point range, a number that feels like it has to increase in the Cavaliers' favor. New York Knicks agreed to hire David Fizdale as their next head coach, multiple sources confirmed. Fizdale, whose hiring was first reported by ESPN, replaces Jeff Hornacek, who was let go last month after 2 seasons. Hornacek never had a chance in New York, spending his first season working under Phil Jackson and his second under new general manager Scott Perry. Fizdale will now come into the job with the full support of the current regime, which has openly discussed a full-scale rebuild with Kristaps Porzingis recovering from a torn ACL, a rookie guard to develop in Frank Ntilikina, and with a high pick in this year's draft to come. That is the kind of organizational buy-in that Fizdale was undoubtedly looking for following his first head coaching job, with the Memphis Grizzlies, ended earlier this season after his relationship with Grizzlies star Marc Gasol disintegrated and the organization sided with its longtime star player. Fizdale, 43, was one of the league's most highly regarded assistants for years, working under Eric Spoelstra with the Miami Heat. He formed close relationships with stars like Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, and received unequivocal backing and support from Spoelstra both before and after he left Miami. After 5 straight years without a playoff berth, the Knicks will be hoping Fizdale can finally be the coach to lift them out of what has been close to 2 decades of near-constant futility. The Cavaliers have been waiting for the version of Kevin Love they got early on in Game 2 against the Raptors. Love may not have been particularly efficient in his 12-minute stint in the first quarter, but he was aggressive, and Cleveland will gladly take aggressive. Battling a thumb injury throughout most of these playoffs, Love has not looked like his usual all-star self. He began Game 2 going 4 for 9, scoring 10 points to go with 3 boards. That surpassed the 7 points Love scored in Game 1, the fourth time finished in single digits this postseason. The Cavaliers have been waiting for Love to get into a groove. Perhaps his start to Game 2 will serve as the beginning of it finally happening. The Celtics have managed to survive, and, at times, thrive, in these NBA playoffs despite missing Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward throughout. Jaylen Brown also sat for part of a Game 7 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks, and all of their Game 1 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. So how are they doing it? Because their remaining, healthy star, Al Horford, is doing the one thing in these playoffs that he has spent so much of his time in his NBA career not doing: scoring. Horford has carved out a successful career as a 5-time All-Star, first with the Atlanta Hawks before signing as a free agent with the Celtics 2 years ago, by operating as a big man who can do anything that's asked of him. He's an excellent passer. He's a capable shooter out beyond the three-point arc. He's one of the smartest defensive players in the league, capable of switching onto just about any offensive player and making a scheme work. But throughout it all, Horford has rarely taken on a large burden when it comes to scoring. In the 92 playoff games Horford played during his first 9 trips to the postseason, he scored 20 or more points 13 times, and 25 or more just twice. In 8 playoff games this season, Horford has already scored more than 20 points 4 times, including matching his playoff career high of 26 points twice. So often, what hasn't been asked of Horford is to score. Instead, it's been to do everything else that's necessary to help his team win. But with Hayward and Irving out, and the Celtics relying on a young supporting cast to try to advance deep into the postseason, Boston coach Brad Stevens has called on Horford to become the typical scoring threat that max players are at this time of year. Horford has responded, and the Celtics are still playing because of it. Schedule, results and channel: Cavaliers at Raptors, 6 p.m., ESPN 76ers at Celtics, 8:30 p.m., TNT. Additional reading: Meek Mill will reportedly watch Sixers in Boston with 76ers owner. Get ready for more Stephen A. Smith. ESPN is expanding his role during the NBA playoffs. Donovan Mitchell on Dunk vs. Rockets. I just happened to be up there. The Wizards quietly gave GM Ernie Grunfeld a contract extension last fall. Now he faces a tricky offseason. Dragging these flawed Cavs to the NBA Finals would be LeBron James's most remarkable feat. Steph Curry comes off bench to vault Warriors to 2-0 lead. Raptors lost a game they had to win. Breaking: LeBron James finally gets called for a lane violation on a free throw. Draymond Green invites Charles Barkley to punch him or else shut up. Or possibly both. Global ambassador starts war. Drake and Kendrick Perkins skirmish in Toronto. NBA podcast: USA Today's Sam Amick on the West playoffs. What's next for Paul George in Portland? The banged-up Celtics aren't as talented as the Sixers. They didn't need to be in Game 1. Was there a snake on the Philadelphia 76ers court? A leader should say that. Paul Pierce loved John Wall's comments about Wizards teammates. Impressive as it was, the Pacers' Victor Oladipo isn't satisfied with his breakout season for once. LeBron James's supporting cast makes all the difference for Cavaliers. John Wall wants the Wizards to overhaul their roster. They likely won't be able to. Friday's loss is likely just the beginning of a painful summer for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Miami Heat bet big on Hassan Whiteside. It appears they made a mistake. Now what? The one-and-done rule is on the way out because of NBA money, not NCAA morals. It feels like the end of an era for the San Antonio Spurs after first-round sweep. Blazers' next steps could include trading away their stars. All my best games I was medicated. Matt Barnes on his game day use of marijuana. Adam Silver: one of the WNBA's problems is that not enough young women pay attention to it. Get off her back. LeBron James defends TNT reporter who asked him about Aaron Popovich's death. NBA Twitch reach deal on 2K League streaming rights. Comment